The third type of application I want to illustrate here that make use of the Common Data Service is the powerapps portal. So I did create a powerapps portal. So let me illustrate how it works. So this is actually what we used to call an extranet, right? So it's a website where external user can come in. Some people can be anonymous. Other user can sign in if you want. They don't need an Office 365 license, or they don't need a specific powerapps license. So you can really create a website from scratch. And I've provided many services. So one of them is that, for instance, external user can request a meeting. So when they request a meeting, a form will show up. People will fill in the form will be stored in Common Data Service, and then a flow will start and the flow will update the meeting room agenda, for instance. That was the scenario of my customer. So if I click here, you will see that a form show up. I'm Serge and I want a meeting in May, for instance. Of course, here I can put a Kamchatka code. So, okay, this is optional. And it's done. So to do so, I just did create a powerapps portal application. I've created a new page called meeting request. And in this page, I've specified that I wanted to see a form, and the form was called web meeting and come from an entity in the Common Data Service called Contoso meeting. That's the only thing you have to do. Just define this entity and customize the form. So that's what I've done. So if I go back here, you will see entities, Contoso meeting, here we go, with a different field like email, first name, last name, and when, and the form was this one. Okay, and as simple as that. That's very important. So this is the Common Data Service play a very important role in this extranet story, because this allow communication between the front end, external user, and the back end, because when you put information in an entity, then you can create a flow that is triggered, and then the flow can communicate with the back end service like Office 365 or Teams and whatever. So that was amazing. This is really amazing. As I mentioned before, creating CDS application with powerapps require a premium license for every user, and that can be very expensive. There is an alternative, which is using or creating powerapps team embedded application. That's the project Oakdale, which is in preview. Let's take a look at the demo. Okay, now I have a team, and I want to create an application that benefits from Oakdale, from Common Data Service, without having to pay the normal Common Data Service license that we call the premium license. So as long as you have a Microsoft 365, which is compatible with this functionality, you don't have to pay any extra fee, which is great actually. You can go up to 2 GB of storage. Now here, if you want to do that, you need to find the powerapps application, powerapps, and I recommend you to pin it. And you get a panel with the following menu where you can see the previous application, that the previous team and powerapps integrated application that you did before. Let's say I want to create an app, or you can create a new app here. Create an app, specify the team. Yeah, it's this one, Demo Oakdale ESPC 2020. Create. And then the system needs to generate a new environment dedicated for this team. And in this environment, you'll get a database. And that's where you have to create your own tables. In CDS, we call that entity. In Oakdale, we call that table, but basically that's the same. And after, I would say 30 seconds, you get this. You are invited to create a table, create new table. Let's name it expenses. Create. And there is by default one column called name that you can rename. I will keep it like this, but it's mandatory. Let's add a new column called description, which is a text, and a last one, which will be amount, and it's decimal. Create. So my table is ready. I can add rows if I want. Just travel to Taiwan, meet my wife, and amount was 2000. Okay, that's great. Now, as you can see, an application has been generated, and the application is ready to be used. Right. So if I run this preview, okay, now I can say I have another travel to Tokyo, meet or new CEO, and okay, that works. So the information is stored in the common data service in Oakdale. Of course, you can add additional table if you want. Add data here, create a new table. Let's say line items. And you can have you can benefit from relationship between table. Name, let's call that amount. Well, I already defined amount in expense, but and here I can create a lookup that point to expense. As you can see, let's call that expense ID, but it's just a lookup, and the lookup will go to expense here. So that's very cool. Okay. So everything is, yeah, I can save, I can rename the app. By default, the apps created are named app. I can save them. And now I'm ready to publish that to my team. I should have renamed the application. By default, it's app. You can specify the channel you want your application to be associated with. If you click here, you can specify that you want the app to show up as a tab. And normally, if you go back to your team, you should see your app. When you click here, you get the app, right? That's pretty cool. Now, keep in mind that you are limited to 2 GB of storage. If you have to add document in your database, it might be interesting to move this document in SharePoint. So you can have an hybrid application where the records are stored in the common data service, so in Oakdale, and the joined document are stored somewhere in a secure place in the document library in SharePoint. Right? That totally makes sense. Otherwise, you will quickly reach the 2 GB of storage. And keep in mind that in this 2 GB, a lot of storage is already used for the system, right?